Hello, it's Peter Wright and Kathleen Beauvais with another episode of the Yakking Show. We got a special for you today. A previous guest who was very popular has returned to talk about the latest advances in treating aneurysms and a few other things connected with that. But let's first introduce co-host Kathleen. Hi, Kathleen. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great, Peter. Thank you. And thank you also very much for tuning into our show. We so appreciate having you. And as Peter mentioned, we have a repeat guest, and I'm so excited. I have, we're so privileged to have you back. Douglas Mulhall, welcome. How are you today?
I'm very well, thanks. I just came off an ocean swim and I'm raring to go.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. Good for you. Now, for those of you who haven't seen the previous two episodes, and I really urge you to go back and see those because they are so fascinating and so full of information. But Douglas is a journalist. He's an author. He's an award-winning documentary filmmaker. He has co-founded Elastrin I'm pronouncing that correctly, aren't I? Elastrin Therapeutics, dedicated to reversing cardiovascular damage. He specializes in helping people live long, healthy lives. And as Peter mentioned, today he's here to yak with us all about Elastin, how Elastin may help with the treatment of aneurysms. And this topic is near and dear to my heart on a personal basis. And Douglas, can't wait to delve right in. So as we said, you've been here before to talk about Elastrin Therapeutics as well as epigenetics. However, you wanted to give us to do a deeper dive today into elastin and some of the new developments. Can you tell us all about that, please?
Sure. And Kathleen, I want to start by saying anybody who's watching this is affected by this for a very simple reason. And that is, and I'm going to show you just with a demonstration. I've given it before on the show, but it's very important to show it. It's called the pinch test. I think you've tried it before, but you just take the back of your hand and you pull it up like that. You pinch the skin of the back of the hand and you hold it up for a few seconds, and then you let it go. So in younger people, it'll snap right back. In older people, it goes down more slowly. And when you're really old, it doesn't go down at all. Now, that is not the collagen in your skin. That is the elastic fiber in your skin. And it is not just in your skin, it's in all of your organs and it's in your arteries. It is basically driving every move you make and every breath you take. So you can't move and your body can't do anything like pumping blood, for example, or breathing without this elastic fiber. Now, a lot of people simply haven't heard of it. You know, when you say elastin, they go, no, I've never heard of that. I get this time and time again. And the reason for that is pretty simple. Even though there are thousands and thousands of scientific papers on it, and this stuff was discovered more than 100 years ago, the problem is that no one could fix it. And so why talk about something that you can't fix? But, and that's what we're going to be talking about today, all through the show, that has changed. And it has changed dramatically with important implications for everybody. So that's a quick introduction to elastin. The only other thing I'll mention is you can't have sex without it and you can't give birth without it. So it is really what I call the elastic of life. That's what it's all about.
So just to clarify a point, Douglas, because a lot of viewers will say, yeah, we might have heard of elastin in cosmetics, but mostly it's collagen. Can you tell us about the collagen part of it? Because it's really the
Sure.
elastin that's more important, would you say, or just
I
as?
would say that they're equally important, and here's why. Elastin fiber and collagen fibers are woven together. It's one of nature's little miracles. And that is why you are both firm and flexible at the same time, because the collagen gives your tissue firmness and strength, and the elastin gives it flexibility and pliability. And just think about that for a moment. It's just it's fantastic. And so these fibers go together. But the reason that the cosmetics companies talk about collagen, and you hear them saying all the time, regardless of the science, that you can restore the flexibility in your skin by, treating the collagen. And that's just simply not true, because the collagen doesn't make your skin elastic. The elastin does. So yes, they're both important, but elastin is really the up and comer now that a number of ways have been found how to restore it.
Wow.
That is interesting. Yeah, but you're quite right. Selling lotions, potions, and creams using collagen is a lot easier for people to understand, even if it's not 100% accurate or not any accuracy than something like elastin, which is more difficult to explain, right?
Well, actually, it's very easy to explain. I mean, basically, it's a pinch test, and plus, what elastin fiber does is it expands from its standing length to 8 times.
8 times.
8 times its standing length, and snaps back again in a fraction of a second, billions of times in your life. And it's the toughest and longest living protein in your body. Now, the problem is, for some reason, that even the world's top experts in elastin don't know why, and I've asked them all, and they still say, yeah, it's a real mystery, is that around the age of 30, your body stops assembling this fiber. So this would be something like if you stop doing maintenance on the wire ropes that hold up the Golden Gate Bridge.
Right.
Because what happens is, over time, little chinks get knocked off the outside protective coating that's around the steel cabling that's on the inside. And when that gets knocked off, the cabling starts to disintegrate. That's exactly what's happening with elastin fiber. So, instead of going like this, it goes, and, quite often they snap and they fray. So that's happening in all of us.
Right. And again, I'm going to ask, why is that really? There's got to be a reason that it stops at 30. I mean, humans lifespan have...
Well, there's been a lot of theories about it. One is, you're genetically programmed to start killing yourself and all of that stuff. But one theory is that actually Homo sapiens are a very young species. We've only been around a couple of 100,000 years. If you look at certain species of whale and shark, the higher species that have a brain to body ratio the same as humans do, they don't have that problem. They live to be 250 and 350 years old in very hostile environments. So there's something about the human species where it just hasn't quite evolved, especially the immune system, because what happens is that when the elastin starts to degrade and the body stops producing it, your immune system turns against you. And the way it does that is that when elastin degrades, it sends out little help me signals, goes, help, help, repair me, repair me. And the first thing you get is inflammation, because inflammation is designed to get rid of the old stuff so that you can actually put in the new stuff. Well, the inflammation is getting rid of the old stuff, but the elastin is continuing to degrade. And so you get chronic inflammation, and it becomes a vicious cycle. So basically what's happening is the degraded elastin is turning your immune system against you, which helps to explain a lot of this chronic inflammation, a lot of these cardiovascular conditions, a lot of the ones that are associated with this chronic inflammation. So this isn't just a little thing. This is a really big thing. And that's why it's so important.
Okay. Here's a quick one for you then. What about, I'm sure studies would have been done on the other primates who have many similarities to Homo sapiens. So would you think that the elastin starts to degrade at about 40% of their expected lifespan as well, or not necessarily?
Well, actually, if you look at companion animals like dogs, and especially large animals like labs, you'll see that they get all kinds of ligament problems, quite in middle life even. Well, ligaments, it's the elastin in the ligaments that's degrading.
Right.
So the answer is yes. In other all mammals depend on elastin fiber to drive all of their movements, and especially in dogs, that degradation process happens much faster than in humans. So yes, the answer is yes.
Similar. Okay, interesting. Right. So now we know a little bit more about elastin, Kathleen.
Right. Now let's move on to aneurysms then, Douglas.
Yep.
First of all,
Yep.
perhaps you can explain what an aneurysm is for those who don't understand what it is.
Yeah. An aneurysm affects about 10 million people across North America, and probably 20 because 10 million don't know they have it and it hasn't been detected. So it's a really important thing, and it's not currently treatable without major life-risking surgery. What aneurysms are a bulge in the artery that can occur in the aorta, it can occur in the brain, it can occur almost anywhere in the body, and it's caused by a weakening of the wall of the artery. So guess what? The middle of the wall of the artery contains a very important layer of elastin fiber, and it's clearly been shown that when that layer of elastin fiber is damaged, you get a weakening in the artery wall, and in some cases, you end up with an aneurysm, this bulge. And the problem is that it grows usually slowly, but it can unexpectedly burst. And a number of high-profile celebrities have died or nearly died of aneurysms. You hear about it all the time. Whoopi Goldberg's brother died of an aneurysm, and there are one of the Game of Thrones stars almost died of an aneurysm. Joni Mitchell, and many others have had problems with these aneurysms. So it's a life-threatening thing. There's currently no effective therapy for it except to, as they say, watch and wait. But once it gets to 5 millimeters, that's the magic number, they have to operate. And it's a very risky operation because they basically have to tie the thing together. There's a number of methods of doing it, but it's really risky business.
So for those of us who mechanically minded, would it be parallel to a garden hose where you can get a straight plastic or rubber hose, which will take X amount of pressure, and then you can get one that's got that crisscross reinforcing of some textile, and that can take probably 10 times the pressure. Similar.
Good comparison.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. So that's the problem is that cross-linking, and that's exactly what it's called. Funny you should say that. The medical term is the cross-linking is what creates the strongness, the flexibility in the elastin fiber, because the chemicals that make it, which are extremely complex and we won't go into here, cross-link to create that matrix.
Okay. So another mechanical analogy would be radial ply tires compared to the old cross ply tires, right? So got more strength, more flexibility.
And in all those cases, a tire can blow out, a hose can spring a leak. It's the same principle.
Same principle, yeah. So here's one for you, though. You're talking about 10 million, possibly 20 million people in North America with aneurysms.
Yep.
Is this something to do with sedentary lifestyle, bad eating habits, diet? Is there a connection?
Peter, that's the thing. The Achilles heel of elastin fiber is just about every bad thing that happens to you, from bad diet to heavy metals. And I'm going to be talking about heavy metals in a moment because there's a brand new study out just this week that talks about that. And repetitive stress injuries, impact injuries, so injury as well as repetitive stress, toxins, you name it. They all do the same thing to this elastin, and it's called oxidative stress. Now, for people who don't know what oxidative stress is actually a pretty good thing because it helps your cells fight against infection. It basically helps them to disable their enemies. Problem is, when we get chronic inflammation and all these other nasty things going on in our body, oxidative stress gets out of balance and turns on you, as I mentioned before, and especially it turns on elastin fiber, and it knocks chinks in elastin fiber's armor. And so answering your question, just about everything bad you can think of is bad for elastin fiber.
Wow. So can you explain now, Douglas, in detail about the heavy metal toxicity as well as the new developments that might be able to help people with aneurysms? Can you go
Sure.
into
And
about that?
yeah, sure. The news is this, and this just came out actually the beginning of this week. It's long been suspected that toxic metals harden arteries, but there's been not a lot of what they would call empirical evidence, or the burning bush that really shows this correlation. Well, this week we got the burning bush, and that was that a very large retrospective study of thousands and thousands of heart patients showed that there is a direct correlation between the levels in their urine of a group of heavy metals that range from cadmium to uranium and cobalt, to lead, for example, are the level in the urine is directly correlated over time with increases in hardening of the arteries, which is shown by calcification.
And
so calcification is this hardening of the arteries that shows up as white lines in a calcium score or on a CAT scan. And so all of a sudden, guess what? The risk of developing all the complications in heart disease are directly correlated with this hardening that is triggered by these heavy metals. So that study definitively showed exactly that the higher level of these metals that are measured in urine, even though that's not a really great measurement, but it's sufficient, is directly correlated with the increase in calcification in the arteries. And calcification is recognized as one of the major risk factors for heart disease and early death.
And I'm assuming, as I mentioned, mercury toxicity would be included in that, and especially, we used to have mercury fillings all the time. In fact, I think some dentists still use mercury for fillings.
Not mine.
No, not mine either. Ooh, not mine either. No, but yeah. Oh my goodness, that's incredible news, Peter.
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting that there's that direct correlation that's established.
And
as you say,
that also, just to follow that through with the therapeutic side, there's something called chelation therapy that number one is controversial, but number two, there is evidence that chelation therapy can reduce calcification and calcium scores.
And now, is there a specific product that somebody can use?
Well, the product that's used in chelation therapy is called EDTA, and I'm not even going to try and pronounce the long name for everybody. We talked about it in previous shows, but it is combined with multivitamins and nutraceuticals in intravenous therapies that take place, once a week over time, and they take, a long time, and they can be costly, except they're not as costly as having a heart attack. So this is one thing is called intravenous chelation. You have to go into a clinic basically and sit with a needle in your arm for a couple of hours. And so it's not very patient convenient. So there is a product, and I have no financial interest in this product whatsoever, but I have used it, and it's called Nanobac TX, and it is made by a company called Nanobiotech Pharma, and it has been on the market continuously for at least 20 years. And it is a oral form of what you would call chelation, but it's more than that because it contains anti-inflammatories and other substances that improve vascular health, which is a really important combination. So on one side, it contains this EDTA that helps to get rid of these heavy metals and the calcification. I'll just repeat that. When you're chelating stuff, you're not just chelating the calcification. Calcium is actually a metal. So you're chelating both that and some of the heavy metals like lead, cadmium, chromium. And this is really important for reducing all kinds of things, the inflammatory risks, cancer risks, cardiovascular risks, etc. So this product has done something that no one else has been able to do because they use a patented enteric coating, a coating that only came along actually about 10 years ago in common use, which protects the substances inside it from the stomach acids, and it passes through into the lower intestine where it's more easily absorbed into the bloodstream. Now, you'll hear a lot of experts say, this oral chelation, it doesn't work at all, because everything gets lost in the stomach. And that's exactly what this particular, product is designed to do. And there have been I want to emphasize, there have been no clinical trials, double-blinded randomized clinical trials, because they cost millions and millions of dollars. And most nutraceuticals manufacturers can't afford millions and millions of dollars. But there is anecdotal evidence and a high number of reports on reduced calcium scores with patients who have been using this. And I can only relay my personal experience, and that has been that actually this year I went back to my old doctor for a 10-year checkup, doing a carotid intimate media thickness test, a CIMT test, which just basically is a high-quality ultrasound that measures the thickness of the wall of your carotid artery, but it can also pick up calcification and plaque. Hasn't changed in 10 years.
Wow.
And he said he's really never seen this before because in everyone it progresses. So that's an anecdotal statement from my personal experience. It's the only thing that I can say. So there you go. So there are these two different products, but, and this is an important but, there is really important preclinical evidence coming down the pipe that nanotechnology can be used to greatly improve the efficacy of this approach by specifically targeting damaged elastin fiber.
Wow.
And that has been developed at Clemson University in South Carolina by Professor Naren Vivahari, who is the head of their biotech unit for all of South Carolina. And he actually discovered this about 15 years ago, and it's taken this long to get to preclinical and clinical applications. So this is a really exciting development because what they've shown in the preclinical applications is that throughout the whole body, you can actually significantly reduce this calcification and restore the elastin fiber. So this is a fairly big development. And now we come back to what we were talking about at the top of the show, which is this aneurysm therapy. So there's a company, not our company, but another company that licensed a technology similar to the one that our company, Elastrin Therapeutics, licensed from Clemson University. Mm-hmm. That other company is called Nectaro Medical. And they have partnered with a device company to do minimally invasive surgery. And you'll understand what I mean by minimally invasive in a moment, where they use a device. It's called a catheter. A lot of people have heard of them. It's something that you insert into the urinary tract or into the artery to deliver something. So this catheter goes into, in this case, the aortic artery, where a lot of aneurysms occur, and it delivers a substance that actually restores elastin fiber. Now, this is not the chelating substance that I was just talking about. It's something else. It's a polyphenol that is found in fruits, tree bark, some vegetables. It's got a fancy name. It's called pentagalloyl glucose, but I'll just call it PGG for short. And again, Dr. Vivahari is the one who discovered that this stuff can actually kickstart the elastin assembly process again. And so about 12 years ago, Nectaro they licensed this and they started working on it. And today, last year, they proved in first-in-human clinical studies that aneurysms can be stabilized.
Wow.
And this has never happened. So the catheter delivers the PGD directly to the aneurysm, and that restores the elastin fiber, and that stabilizes the aneurysm, which is really remarkable because no one has ever stabilized aneurysms before without major life-threatening surgery.
Sure.
Now, the great news is that they're recruiting for clinical trials right now. And if you go to the Nectaro Medical, and anyone can find the Nectaro Medical website, just Google Nectaro Medical, and you'll find it. But you can also find it on my website because I've put the links through there.
Okay.
And so my website that I think you'll bring up is natureoflongevity.com or calcify.com for short. And I've got the links to these various studies. So they're recruiting. So anyone who knows someone who has an aortic aneurysm should try and contact Nectaro.
So
definitely.
It's specifically an aortic aneurysm.
It's the aortic aneurysms. Now, the aneurysms occur in our other parts of the body. They occur, Catherine, as you mentioned before we started the show, they can occur behind the eye. They can occur in the brain. And so they're dangerous usually wherever they occur. But you have to start somewhere, and the aortic aneurysms were the easiest ones to get at. So that's why they started there. But there's more coming once these clinical studies are completed.
Oh, fantastic.
It's interesting. Putting I can't remember the name for it, PGG, locally where the aneurysm in the aorta occurs, is there any benefit to degraded elastrin elsewhere in the body? In other words, tendons or, or an aneurysm in the brain? Is there?
That is what our company is working on. So,
excuse me.
At the same time, around the same time that he discovered what PGG does, he realized that it's difficult to deliver throughout the body because PGG on its own dissolves very quickly in the blood, and it just has no therapeutic effect. So he developed a delivery mechanism, and what I described earlier with the EDTA, where you actually put the PGG, you load it into a nanoparticle. And when I say nanoparticle, I'm talking about something that is, about a tenth the thickness of a human hair.
Wow.
So really, really small. And there is a bit of rocket science to loading these things, eh? And then he attaches it to an antibody that was developed by Dr. Charles Rice at Clemson University. And that antibody is designed to be specific for damaged elastin fiber. So those things together, what happens is you inject them, they go through the bloodstream, and they will latch on to any damaged elastin fiber. So, and there's a lot of damage to elastin fiber throughout the body as we get older. So this is systemic. And the preclinical work has produced fantastic results. It's all published. So people can read it. There have been a dozen studies done on this. And we are currently in the process of optimizing the therapy so that we can begin first in human clinical studies. But given that the Nectaro study has been so successful, we're expecting that we're going to see great things out of this.
Wow, that is amazing, eh?
That is incredible.
That's
So at this stage, the products, or it's not available internationally. It's not available. It's just now going through sort of like a beta test or a testing phase with people with specifically an aortic aneurysm at this stage, correct?
Yes, correct. But there's another product, which is actually a mail order skin cream.
Okay.
Because elastin is in your skin.
Right.
And it was another spin-off company, again from Dr. Vivahari's discovery. So someday I hope he wins the Nobel Prize.
Yeah.
Because elastin is so important, in our lives. And he's discovered all these things in combination with his team and Dr. Rice. But he's really been driving this. And I have huge respect for his tenacity. So this product is called Elastin.
Right.
And it is, as far as I know, the only cosmetic product, skin cream product, that contains this PGG along with a lot of other stuff that can restore surface, elastin just underneath the surface of the skin.
So,
and this is non-prescription.
right.
So, anybody can get it. And I think the website is neolastin.com. So it's neolastin, neolastin.com. And people can go there again. But again, if you go to my website, you can, at calcify.com, you can see all of the links to all of these different approaches.
Excellent.
Okay. So, but even if you put it on the skin, it absorbs into the system. Does it not help even that way?
No, because it's beauty is only skin deep. It won't penetrate into the arteries, and even if it does, it's lost very quickly because it dissipates and it dissolves. It basically falls apart. So that's why you just need this immediate application on the skin. And that's why at Elastrin Therapeutics, we're working on this nanoparticle delivery system exactly because of that problem.
Right.
I might add that this book that we've talked about before, Discovering the Nature of Longevity, there it is, Restoring the Heart and Body by Targeting Hidden Stress, tells this whole story. The discovery of, what destroys elastin fiber, how to fix it, the heavy metals that cause all kinds of problems with it, and the different approaches that are working today. So this is actually, it's hit #1 on Amazon's bestseller list 4 times in the last year.
Wow.
Which is great.
Yeah.
And that's where you can get it. So you can go to Amazon and pick it up.
Excellent. Very good. There'll be links to that in the description. Douglas, getting back to using the nanoparticle delivery with antibodies, presumably, if you extend that thinking and that research, you would be able to come up with a process that would specifically target a delivery to a tendon behind the knee that required extra elastin or repair to the elastin, could you?
Yes, that's correct.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing.
But the reactions are a little different. So the reactions in the vasculature are a little different from the reactions in the tendon and ligaments, and they haven't yet done the work on the tendons and ligaments. So the jury is still out on that one. But Peter, you bring up a very important point that I just want to emphasize here. It's outrageous that we're not investing $1 billion into Elastin therapies. I mean, here we are hobbling along, Nectaro's raised $120 million, which is great, but it's a drop in the bucket compared to the billions that have gone into obesity drugs, and all this other stuff. And yet elastin fiber is responsible for not only every move we make and every breath we take. And by the way, every time you breathe, the air sacs in your lungs, that's the elastin that expands and contracts. So why is it that when we have this preclinical proof, for example, that the elastin fiber in air sacs can be restored in diseases like COPD models, why are the government agencies not investing tens of millions? Why are investors, not running to this? And it's really, I have to say, it's quite scandalous.
Yes,
because
I agree with you.
This shows so much promise, and so many other things get money thrown at them with far less evidence of success, especially when you have another therapy that was developed in Australia by Professor Tony Weiss at University of Sydney that actually rebuilds the elastin fiber in wounds and skin scarring, like with acne. And they have already passed through clinical trials and are in other clinical trials. So, and by the way, the company that developed that out of Sydney, the spinoff, was the subject of Australia's largest startup buyout in Australia's history. $250 million. AbbVie, the big pharma company, paid $250 million for it. So here you have, big pharmaceuticals companies getting in there and starting to invest, but only after you cross this hurdle of the first 10, 20, 30, 40 million dollars. And that's called the valley of death for a lot of startups. So we need money going into those startups to get this rolling, because the big pharma companies will only touch it usually after the first 100 million. That's the problem. So here we have clinical proof of concept from Australia in skin and wounds and acne repair. We have clinical proof of concept in aneurysms. What is wrong with this picture? Why aren't investors absolutely flocking to this? Even when, big pharma companies, Boston Scientific has invested heavily in Nectaro. So these are big names. Where's everyone else?
Where are they? Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And part of the answer is, if this succeeds, don't tell anybody. If this succeeds, what's going to happen to the blood pressure medications and a lot of the drugs that are now making big piles of money for pharma companies? So the pharma companies that are investing in this are not invested in those types of drugs. So you've got a bit of a competition developing here, which is good. And the other group that's beginning to invest in this is technology guys. I'm talking about software guys. And the reason for that is because they realize that conventional pharmaceuticals aren't going to help them live forever, but something like this might.
Right.
And so there's a group, for example, in Germany, and they've been developed by the guy who developed WebDE, which is kind of like the Google search engine of Germany originally, and his name is Michael Greve, and Michael has developed a nonprofit foundation, but he's also developed a investment company called Kazoo. They've invested in our company. Thank you very much. And, you know, they've stuck with it. So you hear that you have this combination of tech people who understand that big pharma isn't really their friend when it comes to real longevity. And there's the other problem. And the other problem is that the regulatory authorities don't really know how to deal with these longevity approaches. They have no way of, they want to go the traditional route of, you got this single illness and we want to target that. Well, longevity doesn't work that way.
No, not at all.
And I'll give you an example of why elastin and elastin degradation is so important for longevity. Anyone who's invested in longevity will know that one of the, shall I say, golden fleeces that they run after is reversing something called senescence. Now, people have heard of going senile. Well, guess what? Cells go senile as well. And that's, you know, when they get old. And when they do that, they start to harden and calcify. And basically, you start to turn to stone, as all of us eventually do. Well, preclinically, when these calcified cells were targeted with the nanoparticle, the senescence actually reversed itself. And the cells returned, the vascular cells returned to their vascular original phenotype. It's astonishing. So if you're talking about reversing senescence, which we have published proof of, wow, you know, that's really something as well. So, but you know, the roadblocks, the regulators don't know how to deal with the systemic effects of this stuff. They don't know how to, you know, they don't know how to do the proper measurements for it. So they're hesitating. The big pharma guys who are vested heavily in the heart drugs aren't too keen on this. And you know, and it's a nasty combination. So we need to you know, it's a little bit like the AIDS situation at the beginning. And you know, movie stars got it. And by the way, a lot of movie stars have had aneurysms. It's about time that Hollywood started agitating to fix elastin fiber.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's right. We're running out of time, but there's another huge industry that depends on people not being fit and able into their old age, and that's the whole caring industry that is built on looking after people who are in ill health for whatever reason, right?
Yeah, and reversing their conditions, which we think is now possible, because if you reverse senescence, you've really got something. And because we're short on time, I'll just say this. I believe that elastin therapy is the next multi-trillion-dollar medical industry. There's no doubt in my mind, because it's everywhere in the human body. It drives every move you make, every breath you take. And if we fix that, that's going to be really something.
I know we're short of time. While you've been talking about senescence, having been a farmer a lot of my life, I'm very familiar with the term of senescence. I see it every year in the crops around me. So why do annual plants senesce and perennial plants do not?
You got me there, Peter.
It's got to be tied up in the genetics somewhere. Anyway, that's a difficult one. Well, Douglas, wow, fantastic. Thanks very much. Just to wrap up, before Kathleen does the wrap up, would you like to mention your websites once more so we can get it clear for all our audio listeners?
Yeah. The short website name is calcify.com, CALCIFY.com. The book is Discovering the Nature of Longevity. It's available at Amazon, #1 bestseller there. And the website for the book is the same, but it's natureoflongevity.com, all one word.
Great. Thanks, Douglas. And for our audio listeners, all those links will be in the descriptions on whatever platform you happen to be listening to this on. And that's it from me. Douglas, thanks again. Thanks to our audience. That was really exciting and intriguing. Kathleen,
Yes.
back to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Douglas, for being with us today. We so appreciated you. And thank you all once again for tuning in to our show. If anyone is interested in being a guest, we encourage you to visit us at theyakkingshow.com. All you need to do is click on the contacts tab where you will find a short application form, and we would love to hear from you. So until next time, take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.